parents, if your child is taking forever to do homework, if they are forgetting simple steps of some everyday tasks, and if they're having meltdowns or shutdowns, as I like to call them, what's probably happening is they're missing these 3 brain-based executive functioning skills that unfortunately schools don't explicitly teach. I'm Nicole, a pediatric occupational therapist, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can go ahead and improve these 3 executive functioning skills so things start getting easier for your kiddo right away. When it comes to executive functioning skills, what's really happening is not that your child doesn't have these skills, it's more likely that they haven't developed these skills to the extent where they could use it easily and smoothly in everyday life, at home, and or at school. When it comes to executive functioning skills, our brain has 11 executive functioning skills that we use every day, starting at 6 months, all the way through, well, forever. We're always using executive functioning skills. I will say that this is a fact that most people don't know. Executive functioning skills develop. They are different in every person. They show up in a different way, almost like a snowflake, fingerprint. Everybody has a little bit of a different executive functioning profile. But the good news is that any executive functioning skill that we have, your kiddo has, that is, they're struggling, that really needs to be developed, can be developed with specific and explicit strategies that you can do right at home. The 3 most common executive functioning skills that show up when your kids are struggling with things like homework, with missing a simple but really important step to complete a task, and even this emotional dysregulation where they either have a meltdown or they have a shutdown to something that happened, right? So the most common ones are working memory, task initiation, and emotional control. So let's break down working memory. I like to think of this as my notes app on my PC. It's a sticky note that you can use as a reminder. This is your child's ability to keep information in their head and then retrieve it when they need it. So example of this would be, grab your shoes, backpack, water bottle, meet me at the door, we're leaving. They walk into the room with all the best intentions to get their shoes, water bottle. They get their shoes on, they see one of their favorite books that they wanted to bring along, and they meet you at the door, but they've forgotten their water bottle and or their backpack. Or they brought their backpack, but they didn't put their water bottle inside. Any variation of these could indicate a struggle with working memory. So why working memory is so important? Because without it, we may forget important pieces of completing a task, or we won't be able to even remember we had the task to complete. Math facts, memorization of math facts are typically really hard. Sometimes reading comprehension becomes really difficult, not because they can't read, but because they're struggling with getting the information. Remember, working memory is you get the information, you store it in your head, and then you retrieve it. So this would show up in a reading comprehension question, right? And just keep in mind that executive functioning skills, any deficits with executive functioning skills, it's not a diagnosable disability, right? So they kind of weave their way into everything your child does. Your child may have ADHD, they may have a learning disability, they may not have any of the above, but working memory could still impact the way they function. The other one that always shows up and interferes with everyday struggles is task initiation, right? This is basically, I know I gotta do it, let's get started, right? This isn't completing the task, this isn't finishing the task, this isn't remembering. You were either reminded, just told to do it, but you're getting started on doing it. So you can look at it as task initiation is basically the exact opposite of procrastination. And we know how many of us struggle with procrastination. But it's proven that once you can overcome procrastination and actually get started on the task, there's a bigger probability, percentage of you actually completing the task. So that's why this task initiation, if we can help support it, your child can really make such big gains, because remember, that's like the major step of completing most tasks. So maybe in your kid, it shows up they're ready to do a simple math worksheet, they sit down, they start thinking about what happened in the playground, or they're thinking about what they're going to do after or in the weekend, and then before they know it, 20 minutes started, and now they realize they have to go to the bathroom, they forgot their pencil, or their friend called them. So guess what didn't happen? The task didn't get started because they were procrastinating. So super important for us adults in the room to keep in mind, when kids struggle with task initiation, it is most beneficial for both parties to keep in mind they're not doing this on purpose, they're not being defiant, they're not being lazy. Are they procrastinating? Yes. Are they distracted? Probably. However, it benefits us to keep this in mind, because then once we think they're defiant, once we think they're doing it on purpose, once we think they're being lazy, guess what? Our ability to come up with limitless possibilities as to how to support them gets shut down. We have a limiting belief they're being lazy. We have a limiting belief that they're being defiant. So guess what? Our brain shuts down and our brain can't come up with any more solutions on how to help them get through this task initiation problem. All right, so here is a big one, emotional control. And this can show up two ways, right? It can show up most common as a meltdown, right? Maybe they're having a hard time at school because friends, especially my high schoolers, middle schoolers, their social scene really dictates the way their emotions are showing up. So it's not that they don't care about school anymore. It's just that their brain has taught them, hey, it's now time for us to separate from our parents. Let's find that friend group. And that really is developmentally what is consuming them as it should be. So if things aren't going right in that area, their emotional control can show up as meltdowns at home. It can show up as shutdowns, right? So a shutdown is when I have these big emotions, these big feelings, and my brain is going into fight or flight, right? So I'm either gonna fight and I'm gonna be pissed off when I get home, I'm gonna be yelling, I'm gonna be defiant, I'm going to maybe what we consider overreact to a very small, menial, everyday thing that comes as part of being a human and living in a family, or fight or flight, or they can go into flight where they just go into shutdown and their brain is like, overload, I'm not doing anything, I'm gonna chill, I need to read a book, I need to binge on Netflix because right now my brain is in overload and I need to stay alive. So when you're looking at what the brain is doing behind the functions, it's no wonder emotional control is such a big part of how your kid shows up at home, at school, and even with their friend groups. Without that emotional connection and that emotional stability, it's really hard to get your homework done on time. It's really hard to remember all of the things. And it's really hard to let those executive functioning skills show up and help you through these things. So imagine with these brain-based skills missing, your kids showing up at school and they're trying to teach them, science, research, essays, reading, and they are skipping over any of these executive functioning skills that we just went over. If you don't have these, it's really hard to learn what you're supposed to be learning in the classroom. And yet, the schools aren't explicitly and specifically teaching it. So we, the parents, the professionals, are left with this dilemma. How do we move forward? The best thing is that these skills are teachable. And especially when you know which of the 11 skills your child needs to focus on, it becomes a lot easier to support them. Let's figure out which skills your child needs to focus on so that they stop struggling at school, at home, and/or with their friends. There is a great way. It should only take about 5 minutes for you to figure out which executive functioning skills your kiddo needs to work on, and that's what my next video is going to cover. In the meanwhile, let me know which executive functioning skill you think your kid is struggling with. Was it the working memory? Was it the task initiation? Or maybe it was that really powerful emotional control piece. Next video, I'm going to walk you through step by step how to figure this out.